Hello, everyone. Nadeem here with Mac, and it's Chat with Mac. It's Friday. It's always a good day. I like Fridays.
Always. Gotta love Fridays. End of the
Yeah,
week. Somewhat not too bad of a week as far as, getting, calls and getting people in. So it was a decent week. But I
yeah,
am happy it's Friday.
yeah. It's been pretty good for me. I mean, I've been making my rounds. Well, we did well today. We finalized the daycare part, so that's all closed. It's done.
Wow.
We handed over the keys. Um, so that's done. But a new project is starting, and that's going to be uh, it's a good problem to have. So we have a lot of work at the workshop. So we're going to need to probably add on to the building. And
Wow.
yeah, and the way we designed it, we left some room to add on. So that's what we're going to do. But we're still thinking about doing that. So we'll figure it out. But that's good. That's a good problem to have.
That's always a good problem to have. Yeah.
So, but yeah, so Mac, we talked, we don't talk a lot during the week. I think this is the only time when we really can chat about stuff.
That is true. That is true. If I'm not on the phone bothering and hi everyone that I call 50 million times a week trying to get you on the phone, but I don't really get a chance to talk to you, unless there's a problem. So these are great. These are
Yeah,
great.
yeah, yeah. So, I think you've been going through like during the week you collect a lot of information and some feedback from customers, and then you want to kind of chat about stuff. So, what do you have this week?
Well, so let's kind of talk about the cloud. When I first started hearing about the cloud, and heck, even up until last month, there was always a lot of resistance, if you will. We've had a server, blah blah blah, and it just seemed like people were just okay with having a server on premises because they were just used to it. In comes COVID, and now people have to work from home, and you're starting to see a shift. As a matter of fact, I think you and I read an article recently in regard talking to the chairman of Microsoft, and he was talking about now there's a lot of migration into the cloud.
Yes.
So I wanted to because I know you're a huge advocate as far as cloud based technology. What are you seeing as it pertains to the SMB space, the small business space, the cloud as far as cloud infrastructure, and where do you see it going?
So, there's a couple of things when it comes to the cloud. There's of course the line of business applications. I'm seeing customers are more open to moving some of these off the shelf type applications into the cloud. Like whether it's QuickBooks or whatever their specific application that they're using. I'm seeing more and more customers wanting to do that. And I think the reason why is because customers are realizing, for example, a small company that uses QuickBooks for their financials, they want to have that QuickBooks to be secure and backed up, and they want it to be a reliable backup. Once it's in the cloud, the infrastructure, the way it's built, is it gives us the option to create very reliable backups with very low overheads.
Yeah.
And that's just a more cost effective way to go about things. Of course, a lot of customers look at several different providers that specialize only with QuickBooks, but then they figure out that okay, well these providers, what they're doing is they have a bunch of servers in some data center, and they're just carving out a slice of that server and giving it to them. It's not
Mm,
truly cloud.
mm.
And once they understand what the cloud is, the dynamic nature of the cloud, then it makes sense to them to, and as opposed to going to a traditional hosting company that they want to move to the cloud. And I mean, last few days we've moved quite a few customers that way, up into the cloud. And the bottom line was, number one, the backups are reliable. It's all there. Number two, we can scale these workloads as needed. So, right now they may be small, but they might see that, in the next, 10 to 12 months, they are seeing a certain level of growth, and they
Mm.
might want to scale up, and they don't want to have to migrate that entire machine to a whole new set of hardware for that migration, which is what's going to happen if you go with a traditional hosting service.
Right.
So that's why they're kind of moving into the cloud, and it's the dynamic scalability that comes into play. Along with that, a lot of the security infrastructure that these cloud providers have already built in, that helps them out. So for a fraction of the cost, what it would take for these customers to build something like this themselves, they can go to the cloud, pay on an hourly basis. And so
Mm.
I'm seeing a lot of that shift. Now, there's another shift. That the second shift started with Microsoft Teams.
Yeah.
When the pandemic first started, and everybody jumped on Zoom, and some vulnerabilities got discovered, and of course
Yeah.
we heard about the Zoom bombs and stuff like that. And around that time, we saw around 300% growth in Microsoft Teams usage. And Microsoft saw that as an opportunity. So Microsoft went out and said, okay, yeah, it's great, but let's not look at the money right now. Let's offer this service to everybody, and then the money will come later, right? And I think that's kind of paying off, because Microsoft even now is providing Microsoft Teams for free to anyone and everyone.
Hmm.
And there is tremendous growth, and within the Microsoft ecosystem. But the benefit that Microsoft got out of that is, as you see, some of these customers, some of these companies were kind of not thinking of cloud migration, but with migration to Microsoft Teams, now they're not as averse to moving to the cloud. So
Yeah.
so we see companies that first they moved their Teams, they moved their video conferencing systems up into Teams, and then we see that some of them are adding PSTN calling on top of that. Now they're there. So now it's not, they're not even thinking of moving out of Teams. They're going to stay in Teams because now they have their phone system and everything coming into Teams.
Yeah.
So the next step is, hey, if Teams is this reliable setup that we have, why can't we run our servers in the same infrastructure? So I think it's opening up a lot of doors for customers to think outside the box. So the technology was there from the beginning. It was just, people were avoiding change, and people don't like change. It doesn't matter. I mean, that's just human nature, right? And now, I mean, there's been so many analysis done, and in IT, I mean, there's a whole discipline called change management, pretty
Yep.
much in every industry, but it's very high on the list in IT because people don't like change. So I think once they kind of saw the benefits, then they were kind of more open to that change. And with that change, it opens up several other opportunities for these customers. For example, load balancers are built in. I mean, it's built into Azure infrastructure. You can do VPN connectivity. It's built in. You can do location based access. It's built in. You can do Azure AD integration. It's built in. You can do MFA. It's built in. I mean, all these ancillary technologies are all built in. Now they can take advantage of that. I mean, take the example of MFA, multi-factor authentication.
Yeah.
If you're in a traditional infrastructure somewhere, you have to go to like VeriSign or some third-party company. You have to spend money on these tokens, these USB tokens that people carry around, and it when they try to log in, it sends them a special code they have to type in.
Hmm.
All that goes out the window. No need for any of that. People use their smartphone, they use their cell phone, whatever they have, and the second factor authentication comes in on their phone, whether they want to use an app or if they want to get just a text message, whatever it is, and it's seamless and it works. And the best part is, companies who already have Teams, they already have accounts in Azure AD. So now they can use the same account for these cloud machines. So
Yeah.
now it's just one identity for their users, just one username and password to remember, and then they can log in securely using that one identity. And the best
Mm.
part is you can integrate your homegrown apps to use that same identity. So Microsoft Azure AD supports single sign-on, and they have their own APIs and everything, and it's very easy to set that up. So what
Mm.
happens is the way it works is a user authenticates with Azure AD. Azure AD generates a token that authenticates that user to the in-house app or an app somewhere else, some third-party app, whatever it is. So now, since the Azure AD knows who the user is, it has already verified that. It's just click, you open the app, and it's boom, it's already there because the user doesn't have to log in anymore because the Azure AD already knows who the user is. So it makes life a lot easier. It brings so many other things to the table.
Oh
Now,
my
that's
gosh.
just that's just tip of the iceberg, right?
Right.
So we get that, and then there's a whole another uh, branch in the cloud, which is IoT. So your IoT devices, that's Internet of Things devices that you can integrate with the IoT hub in Azure AD in Azure. So now all this authentication, not just authentication, but now you can collect data from your devices and analyze them and assess them. Now, let me give you an example. Let's say you're a manufacturing company and you manufacture, let's say you manufacture hinges, right? Just
Okay.
just hinges, whatever kind of hinges. Now, you can deploy a sensor in these hinges where it can collect data from these hinges. So it can collect several different things. So every time the hinge is opened and closed, it records that and it
Yeah.
reports that back to the central database. Well, not only that, it might have a temperature sensor in there. So now you can kind of see if the hinge is opening and closing and the temperature is getting beyond a certain threshold. Now you know that hinge is going to fail because there's something causing that spike in temperature. So that
Mm.
is predictive analysis. Now, you throw that into AI and deep learning, and now you have a system that is intelligent, that can almost make a decision that a human was going to make in the past.
Yeah.
And it's predictive failure, right? So now it can predict when that hinge is going to fail because it's been opened and closed so many times, and because that IoT sensor is detecting a spike in temperature.
Yeah.
I mean, something like this was just not available before, and now it is, and at a fraction of the cost of what it would have been.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's not all. I mean, Microsoft's just building huge. They're dumping a lot of money into this. The
They
next
are.
big thing, the next big thing, I think, is going to be in AI, right? Artificial intelligence, deep learning, AI is it's where it's going to be, and already we are seeing simple things that we used to do. The Microsoft is baking AI into it. For example, if you have the latest version of Word or PowerPoint, a lot of the things that are driven, those hints that these apps give you as you're working, they
Yeah.
are AI driven on the back end. They are becoming more and more intelligent. The best part of AI, and we as humans learned this, in the last few years, because before what we were doing was we were training these AI systems by a human giving it a set of instructions. If this, then do this. We thought that was AI. That wasn't the AI. The AI was that when the machine can learn for itself, and that's where we are now. So the current systems, the way they learn is they learn from their own data. So the more you use the system, the more intelligent it becomes.
Mm.
So the more people use AI, the smarter it gets. The more
Mm.
data it has, the smarter it gets. And that's where we are. And I think we're just at the cusp of this huge revolution, I would say, that is going to change so many things that we take for granted right now that only humans can do.
That's true.
Deep learning combined with AI, combined with the vast majority, that huge bulk data that these cloud systems can handle. Uh, I mean, the next 5 years are, if somebody took me from right now and dropped me into 5 years into the future, a lot of around things around me I probably won't recognize. Things are going to be so different.
Yeah.
I mean, so an easy example is, people are doing smart homes, they're doing smart things, they're where you're driving up to your house, your temperature goes to a certain point, your lights come on, you go past a certain geofence, and certain lights come on at your house. It's getting ready, it knows you're coming, and it's getting ready, or let's say, like, I get on my bike and I drive off, my phone is in my pocket, and the geofence can tell my garage door that, okay, I have left, and I'm like, I'm down the street,
Mm.
and now it knows it can close the garage door because I've left, and there's nobody there, so it closes the garage door for me. So I don't have to push a button, I don't have to do anything. I'm just going, and the garage door closes behind me. Or if I'm coming in, as soon as I make that turn, the last turn towards my street, it knows I'm coming, it opens the garage door, and all I have to do is just pull right in. So a lot of these, I mean, I think in the next 5 years, there's going to be things that we haven't even thought of yet.
I believe it.
These are things that we know about, that the examples that I'm giving you, we know about these things. But there's a lot of things that we haven't even imagined or
We haven't
thought
touched
about
on.
yet, that these AI systems that are gobbling up all this data are going to tell us, oh, by the way, did you know you could do this? That's where we are. It's, I think a few years ago, people might have heard the term big data. So there was
Yeah.
this big data that was, working with tremendous amounts of data. And that kind of automatically fed into the AI system, and it started that AI revolution, because now we had all this data coming in. Now we can use this data to train machine systems,
Mm.
right? So now the Office apps is one example. The other example is Power Apps from Microsoft. So Power Apps use AI as well, and the way it uses AI is it's seamless for the person developing the Power App. So the person doesn't need to know that AI is helping them in the back end, but AI is helping them in the back end, making their processors more streamlined and their code more efficient.
Mm.
So and it's an automatic. I mean, so that's where Microsoft is heading, and Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella,
Yep.
he's big on that. I mean, he's like, let's forget about individual systems and specific ecosystems. Bring whatever platform you're on. You like using a Mac, great, come on, we'll support you. You
Mm.
want Linux, great, doesn't matter. You like Windows, that's fine too. So in the past, it used to be, Microsoft was all about, hey, bring Windows and we'll work with you. In short, Linux is not cancer anymore.
I know, and it's crazy how back then Linux was almost a pariah. To like, oh no, we don't. Even my brother, he is still a huge Linux fan. But back then, when he was studying computer engineering, it was almost as if Linux was the stepchild, if you will,
Yeah, yeah.
of the world at the time. Like you said, now it is not.
Yeah, and so the thing about Linux, and the thing that a lot of people don't uh, realize, is that majority of the systems out there, majority of the internet out there, is running on Linux.
Linux, yeah.
It's just not the human facing machine, but anything behind it is Linux. And Microsoft understood that finally, and they said, okay, yeah, I mean, a lot of people are using Linux. Okay, let's run with it. Open source doesn't matter. GitHub. Microsoft bought GitHub.
Yep.
It's just so but I think these are just little things that Microsoft is doing to get ready for that big revolution, and that big revolution is going to be when me as an end user can use AI to do things that I didn't think were possible. You know, that's where we're going to get to, because once AI becomes like your electricity, you know, you turn the switch and power comes on. When AI is like that, we're going to, I mean, the potential is exponential. I mean, we
Yeah.
can't even imagine right now what it's going to be. I mean, like I you know, just the other day I gave somebody the idea of you know, that the autopilot in a Tesla, and I told them how it can drive the car, and how my sister, you know, like she's a doctor, and every night when she's getting home on late shift, and she's driving home, she just puts it on autopilot because she doesn't have to worry about things. You know, she can just, you know, let the car do its thing, and she doesn't have to, you know, she can kind of relax while she's getting home. And and this guy I was talking to, he didn't believe me. He was like, no, that's not possible. It just, I mean, we're not there. It just can't happen, you know. And it reminded me of something about I was still overseas, and so this must be like maybe like 20, 30 years, no, more than 20 years ago, so probably 30, 35 years ago. Um, this new body shop was built in this place, and one of the guy I was talking to, he says, oh man, this new body shop, it's got so much technology. You put a damaged car in on one side, and from the other side it comes out fixed. And I was like, you know, first of all, that's BS. Second of all, technologically, we're not there. The only way that can happen is if there's humans inside fixing it, you know, denting it and painting it and all that crap. To this guy that I was talking to about autopilot, to him, it seemed that way. And I kind of
Mm,
related to that. You know, it was like, okay, well, that time I was thinking the same thing. I mean, we're not there as far as, you know, putting a car into a body shop and out it comes fixed. We're not there yet. But the thing is, it's possible. We can imagine that happening. You know, we can imagine, you know, robots fixing that car and it coming out the other side. As long as
absolutely.
all the specs of that car are, you know, are known, then there's no reason why a robot cannot fix it.
Yeah.
But you know, only like 30 years ago it was like unimaginable. It was almost like magic, you know. Yeah, something like that would be magic. But now it's not magic. It's becoming normal. You know, so when I told him about autopilot, and how the car just drives and gets you home, and he was like, no, that, you know, that can't be. I mean, he didn't believe me. So I was like, dude, just look it up. I mean, it's, you know, everybody's doing it. You'll miss
Everybody's
out.
doing it. Yeah.
so so yeah, you know, IoT is one thing that's big, because we can collect all this data, and then once we collect all this data, we or our machines can learn from this data. Once we learn from this data, we can make better predictive analysis of that. So we can kind of predict to a certain degree the future. So things are, you know, I mean, we live in an age where we're just at the cusp of this huge shift, that is just gonna, you know, and like I said, in the next 5 years, I'm not gonna recognize the planet. It's gonna be so different.
No, but do you see? Well, let me kind of shift because what kind of initiatives do you think PCSN, our company, are going to put forth? Because we 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 cater to a lot of different verticals, but do you see specific innovations that you're going to take on, let's say, and say, hey, for legal, for our people in legal, hey, this is something that's going to make your life easier? Is there anything that's really making you excited, as far as innovations?
So, you know, talking about uh, on the AI train of thought, there's something that we're doing right now that wasn't possible in the very near past, and that is, you know, our intrusion prevention system.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
so you talk about, you know, the specific vertical of, let's say, the legal industry. So the way our intrusion prevention system works is it learns from the data it's collecting in real time. So what that means is it doesn't matter what vertical you're in, it adapts to your usage habits.
Yep.
So our IPS system in the legal industry is going to look very different compared to the manufacturing industry.
Mm.
And one manufacturing in in the manufacturing industry, companies that use a lot of IoT type devices out in the field, that IPS is going to look very different than a company that does not, because the system is auto learning. So we don't have to train the system or do anything. It learns from the type of data that's flowing through it. and
Mm.
and and that's, I mean, like something like that we couldn't have done without AI, without deep learning, without, I mean, there wouldn't be enough people on the planet to be able to program all this stuff in real time into the system. It just wouldn't happen. So we are, at a point where we are building AI into simple things that people take for granted. So when I talk to a customer about our intrusion prevention system, I don't tell them about AI and how we're collecting data and how we're analyzing it, and then how we are implementing changes based on that analysis, changes based on what we found out, and the whole process is automatic. They don't need to know that. I'm just gonna. They're just going to stop listening in about two sentences, right? So, but the system does use AI on the back end. The system collects a lot of this data, but we don't collect it for historical purpose. So we don't send it to the mothership or to a central database. We process this data within that appliance that's running, whether it's a virtual appliance or a physical appliance at the customer site. So we run this analysis within that appliance, implement the rules, and discard the data, because we don't want to keep collecting this data and it just keeps building up, bigger and bigger, unless there is a specific customer comes to us and says, hey, we want to keep this data and we will pay to store this data for historical purposes.
Mm.
And this is a lot of data. I mean, we're talking about, you wouldn't even understand, just one smart device running on a network generates so much data. uh, Now imagine, five or 10 computers running in a small business, how much data they're
Yeah,
going to be generating. So
that's
there's a
true.
lot of, I mean, we could fill up terabytes of disk storage space if we started saving any data for, for more than a month. In a month we'll be beyond 1 terabyte already. So we
Mm.
we we analyze a lot of this data. We standardize it, and once we implement the rules based on that data, then we discard the data. And something like this wasn't possible. Now, here's the real uh, mind-boggling thing, and that is, some of these appliances, like some of these router appliances that we use, not the virtual ones but the physical ones, they're running an atom CPU. So they're running like an atom based CPU, which is very low power usage CPU. They might have 2 or 4 gig of RAM. They don't have a lot of RAM. They might have, maybe on the high end, they'll have like 128 gig SSD or something like that. So 128 gig solid state storage.
Mm.
So such a, you know, such a low power use device being able to run such analysis, it's, you know, it just is amazing to me that how we can, and doing all of this without requiring these big fans to cool things down, because
Right.
I mean, it's just, now this wouldn't be possible without Linux, without BSD. I mean, without these systems that Microsoft is now starting to embrace, it would not be possible. And I mean, so some of these Atom processors, if you stick those in a tablet and you start using that tablet on a daily basis, you'll be like, this is too slow. I don't want to use it. You'll put it in the trash. And I mean, and these CPUs are, are very low cost CPUs. I mean, you can, and that's what technology does is it will bring the price down for that compute power.
It will.
And I mean, but the beauty of it is with some of these new technologies that are coming out and us embracing these technologies, that we are able to do things that we weren't able to do. Now, I'll give you an example. So, the other day I was watching a show. I forget what show it was, but these guys were doing a test. I think it was on a truck, and there was an undercover truck that the factory was testing. And these trucks, that the prototypes, they kind of try to disguise them so you can't tell what truck it is. And so when these guys were making this video of testing the truck, they were talking to the guy in charge of designing these trucks. And this guy was talking to them about, it has, about their current truck, and it has, 6-speed transmission and blah blah blah, and they were talking about how good it is, how well it shifts. This guy, the team on that prototype truck, they had a working model of a 10-speed transmission.
Mm.
So the guys making the video, they were talking about how great the 6-speed is, and these guys were actually working on a 10-speed transmission, but they couldn't say it. So I tell you this only to tell you that we are working on things that I can't tell people about.
That's funny.
So there are some amazing things that we are working on, and pretty much a lot of IT companies are working on, that we can't just bring out to the public.
That's fair.
But in I can say this, in the next 5 years, the world is going to be very different.
I mean, it is. You're seeing it now. I mean, and I almost hate to say this because it's going to sound bad, but if there's one thing that we're seeing as a result of COVID, is kind of the change.
Yeah.
Now people have been forced to have to adapt to new technologies because of what's going on, and we're seeing a this whole shift. I mean, companies, I think Twitter, Prudential. I'm hearing Amazon now. They're
Yeah.
telling people work from home.
Yeah.
They're working from home now, and now that's forcing companies to kind of move from the old school, quote unquote, old school mindset as far as on premise, blah blah blah, to now what you've been advocating for as long as I've been here, to saying, hey. And the funny thing about it, ladies and gentlemen, is that Nadeem has pretty much been a town crier as it pertains to these kind of changes when I first started with PCN almost 2 years ago. And now here we are 2 years later, and it's happening. And, so it's actually amazing to see the changes. And now, like you said, 5 years from now, we're probably going to look back at this and say, whoa, he was right again. So,
Well,
go ahead. Go ahead.
so we, about 10 years ago, I think, is when we really shifted.
Mm,
uh a little over 10 years ago, we were like a traditional IT company, right? So we had a bunch of engineers. They had to come into the office. It was a 8 to 5 type deal. They come in, and if an engineer wasn't assigned to a task, then they were sitting on the bench, and that's what we used to call them. How many engineers do we have on the bench? That means these engineers are just twiddling their thumbs. So and the idea occurred that, why are we paying these people to come and sit in the office when they can just stay at home, and we can
yeah.
just, assign them the tasks that they can do remote? Why can't they do the work remotely? I mean,
Yeah.
unless you have to physically touch something, Why
There's
can't
no
you do it
reason.
all remote?
There's
You know,
no reason.
back in the day, there was, one of the guys who used to work for us, and he was like, that no, that's not going to work because you just won't be able to charge the same amount per hour if you're not on site. And I'm like, well, I'm not worried about what I'm charging per hour, because if we're doing all this work remote, then our costs are going to be low too. I
Yeah.
mean, our overhead is going to be almost non-existent. So our overhead did not change that much, right? So that stayed about the same, because instead of investing in physical buildings and offices and all the stuff that goes with that, we started investing into the IT infrastructure that will enable our engineers to more easily work remotely. Not only work remotely more easily, but also be able to monitor things seamlessly, whether they're in front of a computer or not. So we invested a lot in that, and this was about 10 years ago. So uh, now we're just seeing that the rest of the world is moving to it. So
Yeah.
and COVID kind of pushed everybody into that. It's like
Eh,
schools. I mean, schools. Why? I mean, okay, so I can see where kids need to be in school so they can kind of socialize and interact with each other and build that skill set. But as far as just studying, they can do it from home. And
and
they're
you're
doing
seeing
it,
that shift.
and they're
Yeah.
doing it now. So it's like, because I was in, I forget, I was in some forum, and I saw posting something. Oh, well, our governor, I think, said that, oh, the schools are closed, and one of the teachers, she responded that no, the schools are not closed, the campuses are closed, but the
Close.
schools are not closed,
That's
right?
it.
So it's, you know the technology has been there for a while, but it's that change. We just don't like change. And now the pandemic is kind of forcing us to change. And I think it's going to bring new levels of performance into the mix. Yeah, we're gonna feel some pain initially. Every change comes with some pain. But once we get past that hump, I think we're gonna see some new levels of output, performance,
Mm,
that could not be seen using the traditional methods. So
yeah.
I think a lot of that's happening, and it's going to happen. But yeah, I mean, it's the remote, and I'm seeing more and more of this, even companies that I mean, like, some of the manufacturing companies out there, they were like, "Oh no, we need people coming into the office. We need people, and we talk about remote, and they were like, no, 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 we don't want remote. Our people come into the office." And then, as soon as this COVID stuff started, and they were like, scrambling, and they were like, "Well, you were talking about that you can implement something like this. Well, how quickly can you do it?" And now all of a sudden it was an emergency. Now, fortunately, they had taken some of our recommendations, and all the infrastructure was already in place for a lot of these businesses.
This is,
So all we
yeah.
had to do was throw a switch, and boom, everybody can do work remotely. But I think there were, like, I would say, less than 10% of businesses that did not take our recommendations, so they were kind of stuck. So now we had to give them like a patch to get working right now until the entire infrastructure is placed. Now, one of the things people don't realize is, even though we've done this a million times, the problem is, if infrastructure is not in place, if there's a part that I have to ship, then that part, in a situation like this, is going to be in short supply, because everybody's going to want that part. And even if I ship it, I can't. You might not get it for a week, for 2 weeks. It
Yeah.
might be on back order. Maybe it's still under
Yeah.
manufacturing. I mean, we've been in situations where stuff was delayed by 3-4 weeks, because it was they just couldn't make it fast enough. I mean, they're just not. I mean, everybody wants it. So you know, the thing is, that's why we try to plan ahead.
Being
And
proactive. Yeah.
we try to be proactive about everything. I mean, it's like, just today I was at the workshop, and somebody asked me something about, I think it was related to email and aliases and all that. And I told them how the account is set up, and they were like, "Oh, why did you set it up that way?" And I was like, "Well, so in future, when we have, instead of just one person in that department, when we have a whole team, then we can redirect these types of messages to the entire team as opposed to just that one person." And so like, so they kind of looked at me and says, "Oh, you're thinking ahead, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Well, that's my job."
Probably one of the best at it, if I have to be real honest. As far as I don't think I've seen, and this may be a shameless plug for PCSN, but I don't think I've seen a company that has been so proactive in making sure they just have things in place. Like what we've seen here, what we have here at PCSN. I mean, it's one of those things where I think I could be wrong. I think Nadeem is probably constantly thinking like, what if this happens? What do we do here? Because we have, the intrusion prevention, dark web security, all of that is right there at the fingertips. Where if it needs to be deployed, is there. And a lot of companies, if we're just being really honest, even IT, providers can't really say that. They
Right,
have to
right.
play from behind.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we're already ahead of the curve. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, and not not just us, but a lot of other companies are kind of doing something similar. Specifically, like companies like Microsoft. They're
always. Yeah,
they're starting to listen to their partners,
yeah,
trying to understand what customers want and trying to deliver on it, looking at it from a perspective of it will improve performance and make life easier for our customers. We may not make a quick buck here, but it will improve the experience for our customers.
hmm.
And a prime example of that is Windows Virtual Desktop. I mean, the technology was there all along. It was not implemented because it would take money out of Microsoft's pocket.
Microsoft Pocket. Yeah,
And with the new way of thinking with the new CEO, it was like, no, this is going to make life so much easier for a lot of customers out there. Let's make it happen. And it is
yeah,
happening. So you can get Windows Virtual Desktop. You can I mean, it's just, so and I love it when partners start to listen, when our vendor partners start to listen, because we're in the trenches, we're in the front line. I mean, we're interacting with customers all day long.
all day long. Yeah,
Microsoft is on the back end where they have to get that information through us.
right.
So all these things have to happen seamlessly. It needs to be like a well-oiled machine. Like, we understand the customer need, we take that need to Microsoft needs to understand it and implement changes. And at the end of the day, for me, it's not work. I mean, I enjoy doing this. So I
This,
mean, I mean,
this,
I can be, fast asleep at 1 o'clock at night, and somebody say, "Hey, Nadeem, I got this problem," and I'll be up and oh, well, okay, well, let's figure it out. And then what makes it all worthwhile is, like, sometimes I get on a call with Microsoft, and so I'll be talking to them, and they'll pull up our profile, and they'll be like, and they'll be like, "How big are you?" And then when we tell them how many engineers we have and how big we are, and they were like, "And you got all this?" And it was like, "How are you doing this?" And we're doing it because everybody at PCSN is in it because they enjoy doing it.
absolutely.
It's not just to make that salary. It's not just
Yeah,
to make a quick buck. It's because we enjoy doing it. It's like, if I wasn't getting paid to do what I do, I would still be doing it because
still
I enjoy
doing it.
doing it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's the thing. It's like, if that famous quote, that if you get into doing what you love doing, then you'll never have to work a day in your life.
Right.
But yeah, so I mean, I think, like I said, in the next 5 years, this world might be unrecognizable. There's a lot of things happening. I mean, we live in these times when technology is just at the cusp of that big moonshot.
Mm,
Things that
mm,
were not figured out before, we kind of got them figured out, and now it's just multiply it. Now it's just just replicate it, and that's it. Um, so I think at the end of the day, there's going to be a lot of good things happening. There's I mean there are certain things I can't talk about, but there's just a lot in the pipeline. There's just a lot in the pipeline. I mean, I just wish that I could multiply myself just so I can enjoy working on multiple technologies, more technologies at the same time. But yeah, so we went remote, a little over 10 years ago, and it's we never looked back.
yeah.
We don't invest in physical offices. We do have some capacity in data centers. That's for our testing labs and things like that. But most of our workloads are up in the cloud. All of our users, they work from wherever they are. And it doesn't matter what device, they can work from any device. So it's that's the world we live in. That's
Yeah.
that's where it has to be.
Yeah.
It'll be one thing that I haven't tried, and it will be interesting to do it, is to be able to remote in from your display on your car and get work done. Like, let's say you're parked somewhere, or there's a long line somewhere, and you're just in your car, and you can use that big display that's just sitting there to get some real work done. I mean, that'd be great.
I wouldn't doubt if Elon Musk has already thought of that and is probably working on it as we speak.
Yeah, well, you can already play games on it. You can already
Yeah.
do all of that. So I think it's only a matter of time. So there are some trade offs with what Elon is doing, right? So one of the things is that if you own a Tesla, and if you hack it, make it do something that it's not supposed to do, then Tesla can stop supporting it. And they actually have a blacklist system where they can blacklist VIN numbers to where they won't push out updates to certain cars. So I
Really?
I hope they were a little more open from that perspective, uh, but I guess they have a business to run as well, so I can see that. But it would be, I mean, I'll be all over it if they didn't have a problem with that, allowing people to kind of like play with the firmware, make some of their
Mod it
own
the way they
changes,
wanted it. Yeah. Yeah.
modify certain parameters as opposed
Yeah.
to just using what the factory is giving them. I mean, yeah, the factory is very proactive. They come up with updates so often, but still, it would be so amazing that if you can use the talent in the users of the application, of this car, you would open the door. I mean, it would be. There are so many creative people out there that will just, you know, I mean, it's so in that sense, I wish they were a little more open to that. Um,
Yeah.
but they're not. So I still, I just play with my old diesel truck, and nobody stops me from messing with that. And if I burn it up, I burn it up.
That's funny. Well, that's all I have actually.
Well, that's great, because I think I didn't even keep track of time, but we've been
No,
talking
I
for a
didn't
while.
even. Yeah, we didn't even. I didn't. Yeah, we've been.
But yeah, so yeah, I mean, we can wrap things up over here, but yeah, I mean, so one of the first things that I tell customers, or any new customer that we bring on board, is even if you're not considering bringing in a third party IT company, I would highly suggest to everybody out there, get an assessment done, especially
Absolutely.
especially if it's a free assessment. What do you have to
What
lose?
do you have to
you
lose?
have you get all this data from this assessment that will let you make an informed decision about your business. I mean, and at the end of the day, it doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't interfere with your users. It doesn't interfere with your
Nope.
work. So
Nope.
why not? avail that opportunity. But that's all I gotta do. I gotta say, and then but yeah, I mean, if people out there have some suggestions, they want to hear about something, they want to hear me talk about something specific, let us know.
Please.
That I think everybody can call in 281-402-2620. Talk to Mac. If you need assessment scheduled, Mac can help you with that. You can go to our website, PC.Net, and you can schedule it there as well. There are a lot of reports on our website. There is an RSS feed on our website.
Yep.
The videos go up there. There's a lot more. So folks, people who watch these videos, you're just watching the tip of the iceberg. There's another set of videos that we do, which are much more formal,
Yeah.
about certain technologies, certain things that are being implemented, things that are going on. So go to our website, and check it out. There's a lot of info out there that might interest you.
Yeah.
How we've kind of helped some of the, we do case studies, and some of these case studies we make videos out of and we post them up there. So it's always good to know, if not your partners, what your competitors are doing at least.
At the very least.
So until next Friday, well, I'm going to be back next Monday. I'm probably going to make a video next Monday, but we might not see Mac until next Friday. So until next Friday, have a good one, everybody, and be safe out there.
Have a good one, guys. Be safe.